Welcome to this week's video. This is not an AI article. This list of predictions and news items were from the end of 1964. The new 65 cars were just coming out, so out of the 18 items, a few were already known. But how many would be wrong? Find out at the end if your guess was right. And as normal, like, subscribe, comment, and all that stuff if you like these types of articles. We will get back to some dealer training films soon, but life gets in the way. Anyways, on to the upcoming automotive news for 1965.
American Motors plans to introduce a fastback sports compact in early 1965, built on the Rambler body with a fiberglass top and Bendix disc brakes. While design specifics are limited, it's expected to resemble the experimental Tarpon. This one would turn out to be correct. The new car would be the Rambler Marlin and resemble the Tarpon concept car shown in 1964. It would quickly be moved to the AMC brand. The concept Tarpon was obviously the internal design car and was a big hit with crowds, but the concept headlights would be a little too close to the '63 Dodge Dart. So they switched out the grille and went with a dual headlight setup. But the roof would not be fiberglass. It indeed did have front disc brakes, one of the first mass-produced cars to come with that option. Pontiac is expected to release a new sporty car in 1966 or 1967, featuring a 104-inch wheelbase, 4 seats, overhead cam 6-cylinder engine, independent rear suspension, and disc brakes. The overhead cam engine is already running in testing, though it's said to be currently quite noisy. Another hit, the new Pontiac Sprint 6 would become available in '66. Pontiac would start with the Chevy Inline 6 and make a high-revving overhead cam 215 horsepower version with a 4-barrel carb that was noted by a stripe on the side. By '69, this was putting out 230 horsepower and get into the 14 seconds with drag racing setups. So these cars would certainly make lots of V8 owners nervous at the track. Detroit automakers are increasingly exploring the Wankel engine, known for its rotating combustion chamber. Ford is testing a Galaxy with a 2-rotor version, while GM and Chrysler have similar engines running on test stands. This was true, but would never pan out. While Wankels would go into use in smaller cars in Europe and Mazdas in '65, the big 3 Wankel engines' interest would be 100% dead by '74. GM was planning to put a Wankel engine in the '75 Vega, but gas prices were climbing, and the mileage and reliability were not meeting expectations, and all interest was finally killed. Chrysler Corporation is planning a major development following its current gas turbine car program. They've loaned 50 turbine cars to 200 individuals for 3-month trials. Starting in 1966, Chrysler aims to produce 500 to 1,000 similar turbine cars for sale or lease, targeting buyers interested in their publicity value. Chrysler will handle all maintenance and use the vehicles for ongoing field testing. The company is now seeking confidential bids for manufacturing components from suppliers like Bendix, Borg-Warner, Midland Ross, and Carter Carburetor. This one is completely false. Due to high manufacturing costs, poor mileage, new emission standards, and the government subsidies ending, turbine cars were doomed. Chrysler would destroy most of the 203 turbine cars it produced when the program shut down in '66. The cars also experience acceleration lag of 1.5 seconds, which people didn't like. The benefits of the turbine engine were fewer moving parts, smoother operation, higher horsepower to weight ratio, and multi-fuel capability. Chrysler would allow people to buy some cars, though, and some of these cars were saved from the crusher. Chrysler's turbine cars currently cost over $15,000 to build, though future models may be cheaper by using ceramic heat exchangers. Public enthusiasm, shown by 40,000 applicants, has fueled Chrysler's optimism. but experts doubt the engine's viability for mass production. They argue its high cost and limited performance gains don't justify the use of expensive materials. This second news item on the Chrysler turbine cars would basically be correct. $15,000 in 1965 is $153,000 in today's money, an absurd amount of money for a car of the time. But the Big Three gave up on turbines once emissions started raising its ugly head, and costs were not coming down. GM may introduce front-wheel drive models in the 1966 or 1967 lineup, following extensive research and nearly a year of prototype testing. These aren't compact cars. They're full-sized luxury vehicles like the Riviera. The main design goal is to achieve a low, flat passenger floor for improved comfort and interior space. Correct. The 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado was GM's first front-wheel drive production car, featuring a 425 cubic inch V8 and a unique chain-driven transmission layout. It was designed for performance and luxury, not compact efficiency. Next would be the 1967 Cadillac Eldorado, sharing its front-wheel drive layout and targeting the premium market. These models helped establish the use of front-wheel drive for larger vehicles, and the entire auto industry would soon follow. About 20% of 1966 cars will feature tires made with a new nylon cord that retains strength and durability while greatly reducing flat spotting. These improved tires are targeted for luxury and high-performance models, responding to customer demand for better performance during extended high-speed driving. We will call this one correct, checking out one example. About 25% of Corvettes came with Goldline nylon tires in 1966. The new nylon tires gave a much better ride, and word caught on that they didn't flat spot. GM is expected to cap engine displacement at 400 cubic inches for its A-body intermediates. Oldsmobile is reworking its 425 engine down to 399 for a GTO-style F85, while Chevy is preparing a 396 version of the updated 63 engine for the Supersport Chevelle. Buick will reportedly use its 401 cubic inch block unchanged in the upcoming Grand Sport, due this winter as a 1965 model. These cars will feature hardtop coupe bodies, bucket seats, special trim, and performance-oriented options, setting the stage for serious competition against Pontiac's GTO. This is correct. GM was worried about brands cannibalizing each other, and it didn't need an internal cubic inch displacement war for the midsize cars. When other divisions complained, GM management just said the GTO was just fine with the 389. GM would lift this rule in 1970 due to pressure from Ford and Chrysler, and the muscle cars wars would peak then, just before being killed off in '72. Significant changes in tire technology are underway, with Ford expected to introduce the first U.S. radial ply tires on select 1965 models. These tires, made by Goodrich, Goodyear, and Firestone, feature cords that run perpendicular to the direction of travel, offering up to twice the lifespan and improved fuel efficiency. While they may cause steering and ride issues, Ford engineers are working to resolve these through suspension and geometry adjustments. Some automakers may even promote them as durable enough to last the life of the car. We will call this one a miss. It would take 5 more years for Ford to offer radial tires, although they were available aftermarket in '65. GM would offer them in '68, and Chrysler would follow in the early '70s also. Disc brakes are gaining traction in the 1965 model year, with Dodge and Plymouth offering Bud units on 426-equipped police cars, AMC introducing Bendix front discs on Classics and Ambassadors, and Ford using Kelsey-Hayes discs across Mustang, Thunderbird, and Lincoln. GM is expected to continue with Delco Moraine designs already featured on early '65 Corvettes with four-wheel discs. Correct again. This was a pretty easy call, as the benefits were many over drum brakes. Heat dissipation, consistency, easier maintenance, better modulation were just a few benefits. Development began in England in 1890, and Jaguar would win Le Mans with them decades later in 1953. And just like radial tires, it would take quite some time for them to become standard equipment on vehicles. Everyone at GM and Ford has been instructed to prepare for a shift to a 36-month warranty, spurred on by Chrysler's strong market response to its mind-blowing 5-year coverage it is introducing. Correct. Chrysler officially introduced its 5-year 50,000-mile warranty program in 1965, with full rollout and public promotion beginning in early 1966. GM would hold the line, claiming they didn't need the extended warranty, but offered optional extended warranties through the dealer. Not until '71 would GM cave with 3-year, 36,000-mile warranties on their drivetrains. Chrysler would not gain a huge market share from this move, though, as many thought the '65 to '66 cars were very bland, though it would help them regain a few percentage points of market share when competition was becoming a frenzy with smaller import cars being introduced. Ford would follow GM's move. Ford executives are resisting pressure to clone the Mustang as a luxury car, despite Lincoln Mercury's interest in a stretched wheelbase version aimed at rivals like the Riviera and Grand Prix. Concerned it could cannibalize Thunderbird sales, they rejected the proposal. Instead, they're committed to keeping the Mustang a sporty, affordable family car, where they see strong market potential. Let's call this half correct, and a half correct is false. Obviously, Ford wasn't going to mess with the Mustang's success, especially with the Thunderbird already filling that role in the Ford brand lineup. And I think the initial rumor was based on the corporation and not the Ford brand. But Mercury would take the Mustang and make their own extended luxury pony car in the Cougar, and it would launch in '67. Customized tires are poised to become a styling frontier, with automakers experimenting with gold sidewalls, multicolored bands, and branded casings tailored to specific models. As seen with the Tempest GTO's red striped tire, these designs may debut as exclusive features before evolving into widespread brand-integrated options over the next 5 years. False. While the red striped tires were a reality, no one was clamoring for model-specific or color-specific striped tires on their cars at an additional cost. Today, people use glue on customizations for tires, but they are still not, one would say, desirable in any way, in my honest opinion. In 1966, Lincoln and Mercury will introduce year-round automatic climate control, similar to Cadillac's Comfort Control system launched in 1964. This innovation maintains a preset interior temperature by seamlessly switching between heating and cooling, and it's expected to spark widespread adoption across the industry. Correct. Chrysler would introduce their climate control version in '68, and it would slowly become more and more prevalent in the '70s and '80s. Consumers didn't and still don't want a single setting, though, and we would always be able to get additional heat and cooling at the touch of a button. A Buffalo inventor, Samuel Pellegrino, has created a tire designed to eliminate blowout risks by using 12 separate, tubeless, inflatable segments that clamp around the rim. If one segment is punctured, the tire continues to function normally on the remaining sections. Pellegrino claims the tire can still operate at reasonable speeds, even with up to 6 segments blown out. To replace a damaged section, the driver simply removes the hubcap, unclamps the faulty piece, and installs a new one. 100% false. This was not a feasible solution, and the magazine probably knew it. No way this was ever going to float, as it was costly and probably had horrible vibration along with added weight. Today we have run-flat tires and airless tires, though. Run-flats have taken off but are costly. Airless tires offer issues themselves. Seatbelts are now mandatory in new cars sold in California, causing minor headaches for auto dealers. Some customers have complained to state officials, insisting the belts are uncomfortable to sit on. Dealers explain that while the law requires seatbelts to be installed, buyers are free to remove them after purchase. There's no legal requirement to wear them, only to have them in the car at the point of sale. Still, critics note that flying out of the car and lying in a ditch may be far more uncomfortable than sitting on a seatbelt. Correct. The National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act would be enacted in the United States in 1966, but manufacturers were already implementing it. The president noted that 614 people alone died over the Labor Day weekend when he signed it. 38,000 people died in 1966 from car crashes. Those numbers are similar to current day, but the population has increased 75%, and many of the deaths today are attributed to criminal activity and higher horsepower of modern vehicles. 1966 exhaust emission standards are prompting car makers to develop their own smog control systems, with GM leading the charge. GM's system uses a small engine-driven pump and manifold to inject fresh air onto hot exhaust valves. This added oxygen helps oxidize unburned hydrocarbons and carbon monoxide into harmless carbon dioxide and water vapor. As a result, the system reduces emissions well below the state's limits of 275 parts per million hydrocarbons and 1.5% carbon monoxide. True, GM's air pump was effective for its time. It significantly reduced tailpipe emissions of unburned hydrocarbons and carbon monoxide by injecting fresh air into the exhaust stream, promoting secondary combustion. Although it did nothing for nitrous oxides, the system would be plagued with issues and last until the early 90s, when it was replaced finally with catalytic converters. Chevrolet's aging two-speed Powerglide automatic, dating back to 1949, is facing internal pressure for replacement. Sales teams are urging engineering and production to adopt a more modern three-speed converter, especially since Ford and Chrysler have fully transitioned to that setup. The Powerglide's limited breakaway acceleration and overly wide gear ratios hinder both off-the-line performance and high-speed passing capability. The Powerglide had a good reputation, but was ancient at this time, so this is true. For the lower-end transmissions, Ford and Chrysler had moved on, but GM was behind somehow. Even with this pressure, the Powerglide would last until 1973 and slowly get phased out starting in '64. GM would offer the Turbo Hydromatic 400, and eventually the Turbo Hydromatic 350 would be the lowest option automatic transmission.
So there we have the automotive news items for November 1964 and the outcomes. Some were total garbage, and many would take decades to come to be. And we still haven't gotten colored tires. Let me know if you want more of these, but I will get back to some dealer films. I'm having Americana withdrawal symptoms, and don't forget to subscribe.